Hello everyone, this is Hungry Monster. I've recently been really wanting to try some authentic French food in the United States, and I thought there's probably no better place than New York City. So I'm back in New York. I've visited 3 Michelin star restaurants, starting from the really classic Le Coucou, then to the #1 award-winning seafood restaurant Le Bernardin, and finished off with a really popular modern French cuisine, Estela. All of them had really exciting and creative menu, and all of them lived up to the really high standards of fine dining in New York City. They are certainly not cheap. I will show you how much they cost and my honest review of how much value they provided. I think this will be a great video if you are a beginner to French fine dining just like me. I hope you enjoy this video, and please don't forget to subscribe. Our first stop was a Michelin 1-star restaurant located in the Little Italy area called Le Coucou. I chose this restaurant as my first destination because it was easy to make a reservation on a Sunday and wanted to be able to order a la carte as opposed to a prefix tasting menu. The restaurant had a very cozy atmosphere, yet still luxurious, and felt it's appropriate to dress up. The dinner menu was divided into the hors d'oeuvres, or basically your appetizers, and gourmandise, dish that kind of transitions to the main meal, and le plat, which includes your main entree. The sourdough bread was really good. I saw that you can gauge how good a French restaurant is by their sourdough bread. I ordered a half bottle of Chablis. Not a ton of options for half bottles, but perfect for me because I was the only one drinking. They had a sommelier who was pretty approachable. I think for those of us who don't routinely go to French restaurants, the main fear is how unapproachable the serving staff and the sommelier would be, but they were actually pretty approachable.
So here's the galantine of guinea hen and foie gras with some Erico bird, some Iberico ham, and some yellow chartreuse mustard on the side. So this, then here are the leeks with cherry vinaigrette and toasted hazel.
For our hors d'oeuvres, we got the chicken foie gras roulade and the poireau vinaigrette. Poireau, I learned, is French for leek. The roulade had an amazing appearance with this mosaic of foie gras and chicken hen, and covered in a type of jelly, which I found out was made of this liquor called chartreuse. The leek dish was also really pretty. I could never imagine having an official appetizer with just leek, but it was very well laid out in a nice square with some garnish, hazelnuts, and a vinaigrette sauce. The roulade was great. I thought it lacked a little bit of taste. I think it's meant to be very subtle. I think we meant to order an actual foie gras, but we just wanted a cold appetizer. This is why we ordered. The hen provided some extra protein texture to the foie gras, but with its white meat, I thought it tasted very subtle and even healthy. But it came with these ring of green beans in small pieces, as well as Iberico ham. So there was this contrast of this little lean roulade with the veggie and some ham. More impressive for me was the leek. It had a really soft texture. There wasn't any uncomfortable smell. I loved the subtle vinaigrette sauce with a nice vinegary kick. That was paired with the nutty flavors of the hazelnut. So among the appetizers, I would strongly recommend the leek. Next, we got this second dish called quenelle, which I've never heard of, never tried before, but this was a strong recommendation by the server. This is basically a fish mousse. The fish today was pike, and the mousse is grilled and covered in this very deep and rich lobster bisque. The mousse almost has a texture of, I want to say, a mozzarella cheese or a pudding. Also reminds me of the odeng in Japanese. Not really knowing this dish from before, we were expecting a little bit more of a meaty texture, but this felt like another appetizer. The quenelle itself was very soft, very airy. It went really well with the lobster bisque, which again was incredibly rich. But again, at this point, I was hoping for a more filling dish, but this was purely for satisfaction of the taste. Although I wanted to come here for the experience and not just for filling my stomach. The bisque was definitely salty. It therefore paired well with the mousse.
How was the canal? Really good? Yeah.
But and also went really well with the sourdough bread. So we scraped down to the last drop of the bisque with our bread. Next was the Dover sole fish in a butter sauce paired with some spinach. They were also nice enough to split the dish into 2 plates. It had a really nice, almost crunchy outer layer. I'm assuming this was probably pan-seared. And the inside was really soft, so there was that contrast. The butter sauce was very rich, a little salty, perfect for a white fish. The portion was just a little small for me though. Our final dish was the filet de boeuf, a fillet of the Chateaubriand and bone marrow with mashed potatoes. We were debating whether to order such a cliche dish, but it certainly did not disappoint. The Chateaubriand was incredibly soft, almost to the point where I thought it was like roast beef. There was no texture as if it was pan grilled. I think they do some sort of slow cooked with a long period of resting. Because if you look on the inside, it's pretty pink throughout, but there's absolutely no scent of blood. There was nice salt and pepper on top. I thought serving it with bone marrow was an incredible idea. I think they made it into some kind of a mousse or a pudding. It wasn't the typical really fatty bone marrow. There was definitely some texture of a mousse, and I think they put it back into the marrow space. The mashed potato was just heavenly, lots of butter, incredibly soft and nicely blended, perfect pairing for the steak. We took a look at the dessert menu just for the sake of it. Most of it was either sorbet or ice cream, which was a bit disappointing. I guess we could have tried the chocolate dacqua, but we chose not to have dessert here, as that was going to add probably another 30 minutes to the meal, and we were just getting a little tired. The entire meal cost about $415, and with tip, we paid close to about $500 for the 2 of us. Instead, they gave us some small macaroon and some jelly, which were perfect. While I'm not a New Yorker, this place seemed to be probably the most reputable French restaurant where you're not committed to a course menu. And also, it has earned 1 star from the Michelin guide. I think it's a great place to spend an anniversary with a partner. It truly embodied the soul of French cuisine, where you'll be able to feel the most complex taste, although the portion may be moderate. After a great introduction to French cuisine in New York, a few days later we came to Le Bernardin, which I understood as probably the top French restaurant in New York City, known for their 3 Michelin stars and their famous chef, Eric Ripert. Located in Midtown amongst all the skyscrapers and the business district, this place had a much different atmosphere from Le Coucou. It was really spacious and had a pretty modern feel to it. I feel like when it comes to tasting menus at restaurants like this, the sky is your limit in terms of the price and the degree of luxury. We wanted to take baby steps and came here for the lunch course menu, which was a lot more affordable than the dinner menu. This place had Burgundy wine that cost up to $15,000, so it speaks to how fancy this place is. The lunch course is limited to 1 appetizer, 1 entree, and 1 dessert. It actually looks like there's a lot of options, which was really fun to look at. And I was hoping that I could choose 1 cold and 1 lightly cooked, but actually the 2 are combined within your choice of an appetizer. The dish and cutlery are beautiful. I just ordered a glass of Chardonnay to pair with all the seafood.
Here is the amuse bouche. Serve a small compliment to welcome you. Traditional salmon rillettes, made with poached and smoked crispy crackers. Middle, it is brandad. It is bacala and potato fritter with pimenton aioli. Last one, it is lobster bisque, tarragon con.
We started off with the amuse-bouche. They were all these bite-sized compaction of umami seafood. The first one I remember had a really nice texture with almost minced salmon covered in this tart-like crusty cracker. And the lobster bisque had a nice foam on top, fairly rich, I think really nice sized in this small cup and not as thick. Some butter served at room temperature. They served a wide assortment of bread, including the raisin bread, focaccia, brioche. For the first meal, I got the tuna foie gras crudo. This was a very interesting dish. A large fillet of tuna. They say it was pounded, and maybe because of that, it was extremely soft and very thin. Don't expect your typical akami with its iron scent. They did a really good job getting rid of the iron scent, and I think they coated the tuna in some type of olive oil. Right underneath the tuna is the foie gras, which is also thin. So you start from the rather lean tuna to the little fatty foie gras, and then the bottommost layer is a crunchy baguette. I think they meant for this to be a progressive transition of texture, starting from the lean tuna to the soft fatty foie gras, then a crunchy baguette. The taste is still memorable to this day.
Crispy black rice. Roasted zucchini, eggplant, caramelized onions, espelette pepper in the middle. Sauce made with citrus and pimenton.
This was my entree, a crispy sea bass in this amazing citrusy sauce, and 3 pieces of grilled zucchini with a really impressive caramelized onion inside. I first chose this dish because I wanted something a little crispy. Some of the other entree options were either slow cooked or steamed. I also wanted a very classic fish, a white fish, for my entree. Starting with texture, it was amazing. The skin was intact. I think they almost either gently fried that part or just intensely pan fried, but they must have grilled the actual white meat in a very slow cooked manner because it was intensely soft and still maintained the chewiness of the sea bass. The sea bass itself was a bit undersalted for me. I'm assuming they meant it for that way. The sauce was very umami. I know it had some citrus and pimenton. The zucchini actually had more of a strong taste. It certainly had some smoked scent to it. It really reminded me of the Japanese yakitori. And inside was a very intense, concentrated, caramelized onion, which really marked the peak in terms of the taste within this dish. This is their dessert menu. It is included in the course meal. We thought the menu here was a little bit more creative. It included the Mont Blanc, some chocolate cake, in addition to sorbet and ice creams. I was done with my first glass of wine for the meal, and at this point, with only dessert remaining, I wanted to try the Sauternes dessert wine. There was a dedicated sommelier who was very attentive to every table. He made this recommendation for me, and it was an intensely concentrated dessert wine. I really liked it. Our sommelier today seemed very knowledgeable, but also very serious. I'm always curious how much they judge the customer based on the wine that they ordered, the price, and the bottle versus glass. While I don't like to think about it, I feel that in restaurants of this caliber, you may be a little pressured to be mindful of that. I got the Peruvian chocolate tart with the vanilla ice cream on top. The chocolate felt like a mix of dark versus milk chocolate. It definitely had some sourness to it. It wasn't entirely sweet. The sweetness was complemented by the very nutty vanilla ice cream. Most importantly, I was really impressed by this little artwork of chocolate. I'm assuming they're making it. I mean, this is honestly pure art, this level of complexity. They served even more dessert, a macaroon, a financier, and some other chocolate piece. All of them were amazing, and I can see the hard work put in by the patisserie team. A nice watermark design on their little pamphlet in the bill. The whole meal cost $340 for the two of us. I thought it was probably what I would have expected for a lunch course. So to summarize, first of all, I think the food was very almost modern, I would say avant-garde, really creative the way they made that crudo, the tuna crudo, and also the sea bass with the little garnish of zucchini and this extra citrus sauce. I would say probably a little less classic than, for example, Le Coucou. I like that it's a seafood only restaurant, so you can really get the most out of the seafood ingredients here. I know I only tried the lunch menu, so I probably had a limited taste of everything they could offer. If I have the luxury, I might want to try the dinner. Service I thought was pretty approachable and relatively down to earth for a restaurant of this level. It was also interesting that there was no one dedicated server, but the whole team took care of all the tables. I kind of liked that. And again, you should come here with the expectation to get the most intense and sophisticated tasting experience instead of trying to fill your stomach. So considering that are meals like this worth their value, I think it depends on your goals and standards. I definitely want to try this place at least once, and I might come back depending on my financial growth. It's not like I can't afford the meal, but I want to be very comfortable when I spend money on a place like this. I wanted to finish off with a brief introduction to a very modern French cuisine in the lower Manhattan called Estela. They opened in 2013, but actually has a Michelin 1-star, known for some of their really eccentric dishes. We started off with an order of the sourdough bread, which I actually thought was the best out of all the 3 restaurants. Next, I got the beef tartare, which was mixed with an ingredient called the sunchoke, which are those yellow small chips. There was a really interesting balance of texture between the beef and the sunchoke, although I was expecting a little bit more exotic and special for the taste. Next is their specialty, the endive with walnuts, anchovy, and this cheese called ubriaco rosso. I've never had this plant called endive. It tasted almost like artichoke or a very mild form of cabbage. Underneath these leaves are this tartare mixture of anchovies, this really pungent and umami cheese, in this vinaigrette sauce, and also walnuts. So you're supposed to eat it like a lettuce wrap, where you add those mixtures onto the leaves, on top of which some droplets of vinaigrette sauce have been added. Next, we got the grilled foie gras in grape leaves, which was an interesting combo. I guess this makes sense so that the leaves can complement the fattiness of the foie gras. The foie gras was grilled, I think, in some sort of beef broth sauce and smoked, because it really reminded me of the Japanese or Korean style barbecue, which I thought was a really interesting way to grill foie gras. The grape leaves, I'm not exactly sure if they go really well. It was just a little bit difficult to cut through them. I don't know if this is a common way to grill foie gras, but it just didn't really strike me personally. Next, we got their other signature dish, which is the fried arroz negro with squid and romesco. This is essentially similar to the squid ink rice that you would see in a tapas restaurant. Although they did add some texture to the rice, I'm not sure how much they fried it, but I did taste the crispiness. I learned the romesco sauce is made of some garlic and tomatoes, and maybe because of that, the arroz definitely had some garlicky finish. It was definitely a solid dish, although I'm not sure if too different from the classic arroz negro in tapas restaurant. Next, we got the Berkshire pork shoulder with some black pudding and parsnips. We ordered this for some good protein because, as you can see, our meals were mostly rice and vegetable. This was yet another interesting dish. The pork, as you just saw, was very well cooked. There was a nice pink to it, almost slow cooked. Somewhere within this dish was a bit too much of nutmeg-like scent. I'm not a huge fan of nutmeg, so I mostly focused on the juiciness of the pork. The bill includes a glass of wine and a beer, and it came out to about $230, which is not surprising for its location, its ambiance, and the complexity of their tastes. So that concludes a review of the 3 hottest French restaurants in New York City, all of whom had at least a Michelin star. French cuisine is really interesting, really sophisticated, and requires high technical skills. But is it for this reason? All 3 of them were quite pricey for me, especially compared to the value it provided. Everything was just a little too subtle, a bit small portioned. I could certainly tell that a lot of work goes into each dish. However, when it comes to the pure satisfaction, the instinctive impression I get from the first bite, it's a bit out of reach for me and a bit artificial. I'm hoping I can find a bit more affordable options in New York City, even if they don't have a Michelin star. If you know any of them, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. That will help my channel. And I will see you next time with another very exciting episode on a different type of cuisine in New York City.